disconnected. Energy, science, quantum physics. This beautiful practice of being rooted in the frequency of love, light, and unity. We are inviting the collective consciousness to awaken and ascend. Hello. Welcome to Rooted Frequency, where we ground down into the beautiful light that is you, one frequency at a time. Together, we root into truths too powerful to ignore, truths that nourish the spirit and support your journey of awakening and embodiment. I'm your host, Tiffany Haney. Today, we're diving into the forgotten realms of Hyperborea, the firmament above, and the prophetic mystery of the little season. What have we been kept from knowing, and why? Because when you control someone's understanding of where they come from, you control their ability to know who they are. And when you strip people of their origins, you strip them of their power. But it's time to remember. And this conversation is a piece of that remembering. So take a breath. Center yourself. Because we're about to journey into the forgotten. This is the unraveling. So let's begin with some questions. Because we like to ask questions here. Why would anyone hide Antarctica? Why lie about the shape of the Earth? Why is it so dangerous to ask what is really above us or beyond us? I get it. On the surface, these questions sound insane, dismissible, fringe theory. But if you've made it here, you already know. The truth doesn't always wear a respectable face. Sometimes the truth hides behind what the world calls crazy. So we're going to start going somewhere ancient, somewhere forbidden, somewhere that's been pushed to the edge of myth and labeled legend. But what if it's not? What if Hyperborea was never a myth but a memory? Now you may be unfamiliar with the name. Hyperborea is said to be a land beyond the north wind, a place of eternal spring, radiant light, and beings who lived in harmony with nature and the divine. They were free from sickness, death, or war. And the people? Tall, radiant, spiritually evolved, deeply connected to Source. A civilization in harmony with the earth and the divine. In Greek mythology, it was described as a paradise, untouched by war, decay, or death. A land where the sun never set. In these ancient Greek texts, Hyperborea was described as a radiant utopian land far to the north, beyond the reach of the cold northern winds. The name literally means beyond Boreas, who is the god of the north wind. Talk of this ancient land doesn't just show up there. It shows up in so many cultures. Not just the Greeks. We see it in stories from Tibet, from the Celts, or even Native American traditions. They all speak of a sacred land to the far north, inhabited by a wise and powerful people who were glowing with light. And why, in this age of satellites and maps and supposed open information, is there so much secrecy around the polar regions? especially the North Pole. Could it be that Hyperborea was real, and that knowledge of it has been hidden from us on purpose? From a metaphysical perspective, Hyperborea represents divine memory before distortion, a pattern of peace, a sacred echo of what humanity once was and could be again. But if I put on my conspiracy hat, Hyperborea is more than symbolic. It's very literal. Many people believe it was, or still is, a real landmass, hidden at the true North Pole. A place erased from modern maps, one guarded and restricted and concealed. But why? Because if Hyperborea is real, if the geography of the Earth has been manipulated, if the maps were raised on a more fiction than fact basis, then we're not just talking about hidden land. We're talking about the controlled perception of reality itself, and that is the problem. Because when we unravel the official story, you don't just challenge history, you unravel control. Control over where you think you came from, control over what you believe is possible, control over your connection to the divine. Because here's the part that they don't want you asking. Why do ancient maps, like the Mercator projection or the mysterious Perry-Reese map, depict land masses at the poles that don't officially exist? Why did early explorers, long before Google Earth, describe lush greenery, mild temperatures, and even wildfire near the Arctic Circle? And why is Antarctica, an entire continent, locked down under the Antarctic Treaty? It is guarded by military forces and off limits to all but a select few. What are they protecting? Or maybe more accurately, what are they hiding? Because if there was a time when humanity lived in full resonance with the divine, a golden age of peace, wisdom, and spiritual technology, and if that world, or some version of it, still exists, whether beyond the veil, beyond the firmament, beyond the wall, or beneath the polar ice, then the real question isn't just what happened, it's why are we being kept from it? Why do they not want this history to be remembered? What would happen if we found our way back? Maybe it's because the return to Hyperborea isn't just physical. Maybe it's vibrational. Maybe it's about you realigning with a truth that predates the lies. A frequency so pure it couldn't be fully erased, just buried. And maybe, just maybe, that's what our awakening is leading us toward. Now, I realize some of you, and just in case you are, you may be new to the Antarctica conspiracies. Or maybe you're just starting to explore the mystery behind this forbidden continent. So let me give you a quick review. Antarctica isn't just the cold, lifeless chunk of ice we've been taught to picture in our minds. It's one of the most locked down, heavily restricted places on Earth. And that should immediately raise questions. Every major country, countries that can't even agree on basic diplomacy, have signed the Antarctic Treaty, pledging to keep this massive continent free of private exploration, free of settlement, and free of development. This means no oil drilling, no mining, no independent research, no unapproved entry. Military planes will literally turn you around. But why? Why such intense protection of a supposed frozen wasteland? Why can't any commercial flights fly over the poles? Why is satellite imagery often blurred or distorted at the polar regions? This level of secrecy should make everyone who is spiritually awake and who is capable of critical thinking, because it gets even stranger than that. There are tons of eyewitness accounts, military, aviation, and explorers going back decades, people who have claimed to see openings in the ice, mountain ranges with no snow, and even signs of ancient architecture. And let's not forget Operation High Jump in 1946, where Admiral Byrd led one of the largest U.S. military expeditions to Antarctica, only to return and report seeing flying craft and that they experienced aggressive resistance. But then, instead of further inquiry, the operation was quietly shut down. Byrd's logs were sealed. The story's basically been scrubbed, censored, rebranded as fantasy or conspiracy. But where there's so much smoke, you better believe there's fire. If Antarctica isn't just ice, if there's something beneath it or beyond it, then the firmament might not just be a biblical relic. It might be a boundary, a veil, a containment field, perhaps. And that brings us to the next layer of the mystery, the firmament itself. What is it? Why did ancient cultures all reference it? And what does that mean for our understanding of Earth, spirit, and sovereignty? Well, we need to talk about the firmament, which I have done a previous episode on that you can catch up more in depth on this topic. But if you were raised in any kind of biblical tradition, you may have heard the word, at the very least, but you probably didn't give it much thought. It's mentioned right in Genesis 1. And God said, "Let there be firmament in the midst of waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Kind of strange language, right? A structure that separates water above from water below. A lot of people brush this off as poetic language, symbolism, a creation myth. But for those of us who have awoke and remember things deep within our bones, we know it's not just poetry, it's a blueprint, even a warning or a map. And it's not just in the Bible. The concept of a solid dome or celestial boundary appears in countless ancient cosmologies. In Sumerian texts, it is written, "The sky was a hammered metal vault." In Norse mythology, the heavens were made from the skull of the giant Ymir, encasing Midgard, our realm. And in Hebrew mysticism, the firmament was a crystalline barrier that held back divine realms. I don't know about you, but when I see a theme that is stretched across numerous cultures and time periods, cultures that are separated by oceans, separated by time, and they all describe a sky that was not infinite, but structured, contained, well, that tells me that there's something to this. That the firmament isn't just a concept, but an energetic veil, a sacred boundary, a dimensional gate between this realm and higher realms, between earth and the heavens, between the matrix and the throne. The Sumerians spoke of 7 heavens. Even the ancient Islamic texts describe the sky as being made of hard substance, impenetrable by human hands. And these weren't uneducated people. They were tuned in. They were aligned. And they were trying to communicate something to us. But what happens when we ignore the elders and only believe the empire? Because if we fast forward to present day, modern science tells us we're living on a spinning ball orbiting the sun at 67,000 miles per hour within a universe that expands endlessly in all directions. But I've never seen this. You've never seen this. We believe it. We're taught it. We repeat it. But is it true? And if you question this, why do people look at you like you have 3 foreheads? Why is asking questions so demonized by our society? It seems like science has been weaponized to disconnect us from what the ancients knew. We believe this one narrative, and then you see dozens of a different narrative from different people, different parts of the world, and yet it's weird to ask questions why. These people all spoke of this created, contained system, this realm, a designed space with purpose, order, and, yes, physical boundaries. I mean, what if the firmament is real? What if there's a literal boundary above us, one that's impenetrable, divinely constructed, and the space that we've been sold on is just part of a very sophisticated illusion? Can you imagine if this were proven? The implications would be massive. It would mean that NASA isn't just misled, but part of the cover-up. It would mean that these stars are not distant suns, but lights embedded in the dome. It would mean everything from the shape of our Earth to the concept of the universe is designed to keep us from discovering the truth of who we are, where we are, and what we are capable of. We are sold this story of stars we can't touch. We get NASA, named after the Hebrew word nasha, which means to deceive. We get CGI planets and $60 million a day budgets to fund the fantasy. You've seen the rocket's curve. You've seen the footage glitch. We've even seen astronauts fall over wires. Why can't we go straight up? Why did Werner von Braun, the Nazi-turned NASA founder, have Psalm 19:1 engraved on his tombstone, which states, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork"? That's a very strange thing to choose to have engraved on your tombstone. And this is the founder of NASA. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Was that a clue? A confession? If the sky is sealed off, if space as we've been sold it is theater, then what the hell is really above us, and what are they keeping us from? And maybe it's not even about what's out there. Maybe it's about what's in here. The frequency of heaven encoded in the human design. Because when you understand that the firmament is real, heaven stops being a metaphor and becomes a real place, a realm, a proximity we were never meant to be cut off from. And if there is a ceiling to this place, and if Antarctica is the wall around it, then this isn't just about geography. It's about spiritual captivity. It's about keeping us from reaching the divine. The firmament isn't just a divide between us and space. It's dividing our awareness. It keeps the divine presence out of reach, not by necessity, but by evil design. It's so much more than just rockets and lies. It's about access. How does it make you feel to think that maybe your access to the divine creator has been cut off? Because when these people decided to remove heaven from the map, you sever the sacred from the everyday. You convince people they're spinning on a ball, flying through an infinite void, insignificant, accidental, and alone. But imagine a world where we know the sky is a veil, where we know and remember that beyond it is source. Close, tangible, near. You become dangerous to the system. Because you stop looking out and start looking within. And that's where heaven lies. Not in another galaxy, not light years away, but above you and through you. It's a throne we were made to approach, the frequency we were made to carry. The kingdom that was always within reach until they told us it wasn't. But the veil is thinning. The firmament is groaning under the weight of our awakening. The divide is cracking, not in fear, but in invitation. Because the more you remember, the less you obey. And the less you obey, the more you rise. Now, let's talk about the time we are in right now, which we touched a bit on in our last episode. A timeline that's not just unfolding, but one that has already been foretold. Revelation 20 speaks of it plainly. After 1,000 years of peace, after the enemy is bound, he is loosed for a little season. A final window, a temporary unleashing of distortion, inversion, and false power. Not forever, just for a little while. But make no mistake, this little season is not small in its impact. It is the storm before the restoration, the final act before the curtain falls. The last gasps of a dying system that know its time is short. And if you've made it this far with me, if you didn't shut this off when I started debating space exploration and the shape of the Earth, I think you feel it too. You've been watching the Earth tilt on its axis, not physically, but morally, energetically, spiritually. Up is down, right is wrong, children are taught confusion, discernment is called hate. Truth is labeled dangerous. This is the age of inversion, where light is censored and darkness is glorified, where sacred things are mocked with hashtags and trend filters, and where people worship algorithms and kneel at the altars of celebrity, tech, and false saviors. We are in it, people. We are living in what the ancients called the end of the age. Not the end of the world. Because we're in it. We're living in what the ancients called the end of an age. Not the end of the world, but the end of an illusion. The closing of a cycle. The expiration date of a system that was never designed for our liberation. And if you're sensitive, if you feel everything, you're not broken. You're not, quote unquote, too much. You're awake. You're awake to the sickness in the air that others have normalized. You're awake to the spiritual warfare playing out in politics, the media, in education, in entertainment. You're awake to the fact that the powers that be are clinging to their thrones, not because they're strong, but because they are desperate. Because the veils, they're not just thinning, they are dissolving. And when the veil dissolves, truth emerges. Old timelines collapse. Ancient memory resurfaces. And hidden knowledge about Earth, about the self, about God, starts to reactivate in the human heart. This is why everything right now feels louder, faster, more intense. It's not because the world is ending, it's because deception is unraveling. The systems that fed on your amnesia, they're starving. The entities that thrived on your confusion are losing their grip, and the illusions that ruled the collective are disintegrating under the weight of your remembrance. You might feel like the ground beneath you is shaking, and it is. Because you're not just walking through a chaotic world, you're basically walking through a cosmic exorcism. And what do exorcisms feel like? Violent, noisy, terrifying. Especially if you don't know what's really happening. But from a higher lens, this deliverance, this is cleansing. This is the light reclaiming dominion over a realm that has been hijacked for far too long. And you came here for this. Not just to witness it, but to anchor through it. You came to hold a frequency that the darkness can't touch. To speak truth when truth is dangerous. To live with integrity when lies are easier. To stand unshaken when the world around you is built on sand. The little season is a test, yeah? But not a test that you're meant to fear. It's a test that your soul has trained lifetimes for. You were not born to cower, but born to remember. To burn with clarity in a world choking on its own fog. The season is brief, and it will pass. It's what you do in it that matters. Because this isn't just about you. It's about the entire lineage that you carry. The codes that you awaken, the ones watching you, on Earth and beyond, who remember who you are even when you forget. You are the frequency holder, the spiritual stabilizer, the living proof that remembrance is stronger than illusion. So please don't panic. Don't retreat. And don't play small. You didn't come here to just escape darkness. You came to reveal what is really lurking inside of it. And you are not alone. You are not crazy. And you are not losing your mind. You are shedding what was never yours. And every time you speak truth, act in love, rest in peace, and live in alignment, you rip another thread from the tapestry that is that lie. So hold your ground. Because the storm doesn't get the final word. Remembrance does. Truth does. Source does. And you are here to remind the world of that. One breath, one frequency, one moment of unwavering presence at a time. This is the little season. But you are not little. You are eternal. We are in this moment now, a time of mass illusion, a time when truth is buried, rewritten, and even mocked. The spiritual amnesia runs so deep. These systems that rise and appear godlike while drawing people further from divine truth, we need to pay attention to them. We're in a world flooded with information, but starving for truth. A world where questions get you labeled, where seeking gets you censored, where the deeper you dig, the more you realize you were never meant to know how powerful you truly are. So what if the little season is this very matrix that we're waking up in? A final deception blanketing the firmament, locking the gates of Hyperborea, and rewriting the maps of your soul. What if this is the last desperate gasp of a dying system, clamoring to keep you from remembering who you are, where you're from, and where you're going? Maybe the return to Hyperborea isn't about walking across ice or breaking through a dome, but about returning to a state of divine remembrance, leaving ignorance for remembrance, a state of harmony, sovereignty, and light, the one they tried to erase from the maps, but couldn't erase from your soul. There are breadcrumbs to support this everywhere. And once you start connecting the dots, it becomes clear. Something is being actively hidden. And if you still need more convincing of that, let's jump back to Operation High Jump. I briefly mentioned it, but it was a massive U.S. Navy mission in 1946 that was led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd. This wasn't a research trip. It involved 4,700 military personnel, 13 ships, aircraft, and full logistical support. They were supposed to be there for 6 months. But they left after 6 weeks. Why? And according to Byrd himself, in interviews afterwards, they encountered advanced aerial technology, craft that could fly pole to pole at incredible speeds. This was the 1940s. Decades before modern stealth technology. And then after this big admission, silence. Byrd's logs were classified and the mission quietly disappeared from mainstream conversation. And then there's the Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959, just years after Operation High Jump. This is the only international agreement that's remained virtually unchanged for over 60 years. That's crazy. This agreement bans all military activity. It restricts access and prohibits territorial claims. No private exploration is allowed. No resource harvesting, no settlements. The entire continent is essentially off limits. Why? If we look at Admiral Byrd's final diary, which many claim was suppressed, in it he allegedly describes flying into the earth, past mountains with no snow, into a lush land filled with warm air, strange animals, and intelligent beings. It reads like a science fiction until you realize the military sealed his documents. And then there's Lake Vostok, a massive, mysterious body of water buried over 2 miles beneath Antarctic ice, sealed off for what scientists claim could be millions of years. It became the focus of intense research. But when Russian scientists finally drilled down into the lake in 2012, the project was suddenly halted, quietly, without public explanation. Even back in 2007, a group of scientists from Russia, the US, and other countries were evacuated after a mysterious illness swept their station. There was no public explanation given. This one gives me chills. Buzz Aldrin, yes, the astronaut, visited Antarctica in 2016, and he had to leave abruptly due to a sudden illness, just like the scientists. But not before tweeting and quickly deleting, quote, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself," end quote. I mean, what the fuck? Researchers have officially found microbial life adapted to extreme conditions, but unofficially, whispers from all of these adventures around magnetic anomalies, of signals of something ancient beneath the ice that defied explanation. And it wasn't just Lake Vostok. Reports began to surface of massive magnetic anomalies across Antarctica. Strange, powerful energy signatures unlike anything seen on Earth. And one of the strongest, most powerful, was directly beneath Vostok. Is it coincidence? Or is something buried there? Something emitting immense power? And then there are the forbidden zones, areas marked off limits to even the most credentialed researchers. Civilian expeditions are rerouted, satellite images are blurred or censored. Why? To block ice? And then scattered among this ice, rumors of ancient pyramidal structures. Geometric, symmetrical, rising from beneath the snow. Photos do exist, but they're dismissed, obscured, or explained away. And in the shadow of history, we find yet another layer: the Nazi connection. Expeditions in the late 1930s alleged underground bases, a strange obsession with Antarctica that didn't die with the war, and some people believe they found something. Others believe they never left. And when you add this all together, hidden lakes, magnetic anomalies, ancient ruins, sealed access, and military-level secrecy, you don't come to the conclusion that this is a frozen wasteland. You get a vault, a lockbox of truth. And the real question becomes, what are they keeping from us? And why are they so afraid that we might find it? Declassified documents and post-war intelligence suggest that the Nazis had a deep interest in Antarctica. Operation Schwabenland in 1938 to 1939 was a full-blown expedition. They allegedly mapped parts of Queen Maud Land, renaming it New Schwabenland, and set up underground bases. And after that war, there were whispers from Allied intelligence that Nazi scientists and officers escaped to Antarctica, that they had found something there. Many believe it was ancient technology. Others believe they made contact with a hidden civilization beneath the ice, possibly connected to the myth of Agartha or Inner Earth. Is that why we sent Admiral Byrd? Was Operation High Jump a recon mission or a cleanup operation? And why were so many of the Nazi records sealed or destroyed? If ancient civilizations, advanced energy sources, or interdimensional access points exist beneath Antarctica, then everything we know collapses. Why? Well, it means that our history has been rewritten, for one, that our cosmology is false, that our spiritual potential is being actively suppressed. And maybe that's the real secret of Antarctica. Not just that it hides ancient ruins or secret bases, but that it might be the last physical trace of a time when humanity lived in harmony with divine intelligence. A time before the veil, before the firmament, before the fall. And that's why it's guarded. That's why it's censored. Because if we found what's buried there, we'd remember who we are, and they'd lose control. And a picture starts to emerge, doesn't it? Antarctica isn't just cold and empty. It's guarded, hidden, classified. Because something is there. Whether it's ancient ruins, advanced technology, hidden entrances, or a realm entirely cut off from public access, they don't want you to see it. Why the secrecy? We have to ask. Because if what lies under the ice could rewrite history, expose lies, and reconnect us to our divine truth, then it makes sense that they'd do everything they can to keep it buried. So, to wrap that all up, why this matters, why we are talking about it, why I am telling you to question things, why talk about hidden continents and ancient domes and forbidden knowledge and prophetic chaos when the world tells you it's all fantasy? Because truth is power. And suppression is the oldest weapon in the book. They didn't just erase history, they replaced it. They didn't just hide the map, they redrew it. And then they convinced you that the only thing that's real, above all else, is what they tell you, what they approve is real. Everything else is myth, conspiracy, and delusion. But the greatest conspiracy has never been about aliens or governments. It's been about your consciousness, about your memory, about keeping you so disconnected from your divine inheritance that you forget you were ever more than a body, that you were ever more than a citizen or more than a consumer. They have built an entire system around the lie that you are powerless. And then they fill your days with noise, distraction, division, and fear. Because a sovereign soul is ungovernable. A remembering human is unstoppable. And a collective that reclaims its origin, its truth, its cosmic identity, well, that's a system breaker. And that is why this conversation, this topic right now matters. Because forgetting isn't just unfortunate. It's engineered. It's designed. This matrix wasn't built to house your power. It was built to contain it. And they've done everything to keep you asleep. From teaching you that Earth is a speck in a meaningless void, that you are this random accident of evolution, that if heaven does exist, it's super far away, if it exists at all, and if divine lives in books and buildings, divine doesn't lie in you. You're not divine at all. You can visit divine places. You can read about divine beings. You aren't divine. And that if you feel things too deeply or foresee things happening, you must have a disorder. Are you questioning things too much? You're rebellious. That trusting your intuition, well, it makes you dangerous. Dangerous to the system. We may never know exactly what is buried beneath the ice, or if there is anything buried at all, at least not in this lifetime. But it does seem that the most compelling theory is that there is some sort of ancient civilization. Not just the ones that we were taught about, like Egypt, Sumerians, Mesoamerica, but an ancient culture that predates all of them. Many people believe that Antarctica was once a thriving, temperate land, and one in which humanity lived in divine harmony with access to advanced technologies, possibly even the original knowledge of sacred geometry, energy systems, and spiritual truths that we only scratch the surface of today. Why? Because across the globe, myths speak of a lost land, a paradise lost to time and ice. Most likely you've heard of Lemuria and Atlantis, but now we talk about Hyperborea. And many point to Antarctica as the final resting place of these ancient peoples. When the Great Flood, or cataclysmic event, shifted the Earth's poles, their once thriving land was frozen over, sealing their legacy in ice. Could the pyramids, the forbidden zones, the magnetic anomalies be evidence of this ancient civilization's remnants? Could those towering structures beneath the ice be more than just ancient temples or monuments? Maybe they're power stations, energy grids, or even portals to higher dimensional realms. This is definitely another layer to consider, the possibility of hidden realms. This is much like the legendary Agartha, which according to esoteric traditions, Agartha is an ancient underground civilization residing deep within the earth. Beyond the reach of surface dwellers, some believe the entrances to Agartha are hidden in places like the North and South Poles. So if Antarctica holds one of those doorways, what does that mean for humanity? Could there be an entire world hidden beneath the ice? A world that's sealed off, protected from human interference for eons? And there's one more mystical theory: dimensional gateways. If we take a closer look at the magnetic anomalies and unusual energy signatures that some believe are not just physical phenomena, but energetic distortions, could Antarctica be a threshold? A place where the veil between our world and another is thinner? A place where higher dimensional beings, energies, or even time itself shifts? Think about this. Every ancient culture, the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Sumerians, knew about portals, about sacred sites where the boundaries between worlds were weaker. What if Antarctica was one of these places? And what if the firmament, the ice, and the magnetic anomalies are part of a protective barrier keeping us from accessing these sacred truths? And finally, let's not forget the spiritual implications. If the truth buried beneath the ice is tied to ancient wisdom and higher dimensional realities, could this be the very reason we're being kept in the dark? Could the beings, technologies, or energy sources hidden there hold the key to our own awakening? Could they restore humanity to its original divine state, free from manipulation, the control, the distractions of the matrix that we currently live in? What's the truth? What's really hiding under the ice? I mean, maybe it's not even ancient ruins or advanced tech. Maybe it's just about access. Access to a spiritual freedom that we haven't had in millennia. Maybe it's about remembering the power we lost and reclaiming it. And they don't want that. Whatever it is, one thing is certain. Antarctica is a place where the old world meets the new. And when we finally pierce the veil and uncover the truth, it will change everything. But isn't that why the secrets, the narratives, and the hidden truths even exist? They are hiding these things from us, from you. Why? You are dangerous. Dangerous to them, to their control, to the lie, because you came to this planet to remember, and they're trying to stop you from doing so. And every time you reject the narrative, every time you choose presence over panic, every time you feel, question, pray, seek, awaken, You destabilize the grid of illusion. You weren't meant to just survive here. You were meant to crack this realm open from the inside. Meant to carry light codes into places that have only shown shadow, to reactivate these timelines that they buried, to embody truth in a world built on fiction. And guess what? You're already doing it. With every frequency you hold, every awakening conversation, every moment you say, no, I'm remembering who I am, you are shifting the field. They want you to forget? Too late. Because you're not just remembering for yourself, you're remembering for your ancestors, for the children not yet born, for the ones who lost their way and are aching for a glimpse of the truth beneath all this noise. And you? You are that glimpse, that mirror, that signal in the static that says, there's more. You're more. So if you've been waiting for a sign to trust your knowing, a sign to speak your truth, to live like the sacred, this is it. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not imagining things. You are ancient. You are coated with remembrance. You are the threat they never saw coming because you don't fight with swords. You fight with frequency, with clarity, with truth. You are the end of their forgetting. You are the beginning of our return. So let the world call you crazy. Let them laugh, scroll, and scoff. Because one day soon, the veils will fall for everyone. And they'll remember who told them first. So stand tall in that truth, my loves. You are not here to fit in. You are here to restore what was lost. And that changes everything. Thank you for tuning in for this conversation. I love you all. Go out there and shine your light. Continue to remember, and we will break this frickin' barrier together, one frequency at a time. Once again, I'm your host, Tiffany Haney. Love you all. Bye. Everything is connected. Energy, science, quantum physics. This beautiful